Norway has one of the strongest economies in the world. The mother was very specific and said that she did not want me to be the doctor of the child. The first thing one has to do is learn the language. I didn't want to take PLAB 1, PLAB 2. I was so tired of exams. I am the African person who's always looking for Africans.
What's it like being a child psychiatrist and having a child?
I was brought up in a completely different way from what I'm trying to do with my son. Your child actually mirrors your emotions even without you knowing it. I'm not saying I'm a perfect mother because sometimes it comes out and then I have to remind myself, like, anyone planning to be a mother should have, it gets really cold. Like, I'm talking -30, -40s.
Could you speak Norwegian?
I couldn't, not even a single word. Even in English, sometimes it's hard to express yourself.
Why did you choose psychiatry? Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Sissy if you're new here. And if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. In this video, I'm super excited to bring for you Joanita. Joanita is the first consultant that we're having on the channel. She's a consultant psychiatrist and she is based in Norway. She's also the first person from Norway, and I'm looking forward to hearing about her journey, her story, what's life like in Norway, how can anyone else come to Norway if they want to, what are the pros, what are the cons, and yeah. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you very much, Sissy. I'm very glad to be on your channel, actually. I have followed you, watched your videos, and I am very proud of what you're doing. Just making people aware of different things, actually, not just psychiatry related, but generally life.
Thank you.
Relocating to England. Just very proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Just to correct you, I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist, so not an adult.
Yes, child and adolescent psychiatrist. Why did you choose that? Yeah, why did you choose
Well,
that?
I think I'll start a little bit of my background.
Yes, I think we have jumped steps. Let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah, I'll take it all the way back to, well, I was born and raised in Uganda, went to school in Uganda up to I was in S3. I went to Namagunga my whole life, basically, from when I was 6 years old. I was in primary Namagunga, and then transferred to Mountain Mary's Namagunga. But after S3, I believe, yeah. And then my family moved to Switzerland, and I was put in boarding school in England, in Oxford, actually. Yeah, I did my GCSEs and A-levels in England. And after that, I relocated to Hungary to do medicine. So I studied medicine in Hungary. And at the time when I was graduating medicine in Hungary, it was very popular to relocate to Norway to work because they needed a lot of doctors. It was a good job market, like you were guaranteed a job immediately. So that's one of the reasons why I thought that, Norway would be a great place to move to. The job security was straightforward at that time. This was around 2009 when I graduated.
Yeah, I have so many questions already. But just to recap, if I understood correctly, you were born and raised in Uganda. You went to Namagunga Primary, then went to secondary school, which is where I also went to. But then in S3, your family relocated to Switzerland. I had Switzerland.
Yes.
Not England.
No, Switzerland. But because my parents felt like I had been too long in boarding school to be transferred to day school. The only possibility that they thought would be a nice, smooth move would be to take me to an English boarding because that's what I was accustomed to in Uganda,
Okay, rather than Switzerland.
Yeah, where they speak French. Well, we moved to Geneva actually, so it's predominantly French speaking. The schools are mostly day. Yeah, so there was no boarding school. There are some boarding schools, but they're not. They also wanted a Catholic boarding school.
Okay, to continue now.
Yes, exactly. So we were looking for a Catholic all-girls boarding school.
And where was that exactly? You said in Oxford.
Yeah, we found one in Oxford. It's called Rice St. Anthony School. So that's where I went, did my GCSEs there, which is all levels. And then I also did my A-levels there.
And then now from Switzerland, you went to Hungary for medical school.
This is me studying. So from England, I went to Hungary, but still my parents lived in Switzerland. And my siblings, actually, the two younger ones after me, they schooled everything in Switzerland because they were very young. So they learned French and they went into the schools there, international school. And then, so they went to school there. I went to England and then Hungary.
That's so interesting. And then when it was time for you to consider where to work, you considered Norway because of the job issue. But then
initially, actually, I was considering England. And that was my first and only option. It was last minute that it switched. The reason why it switched was because I didn't want to take PLAB 1, PLAB 2. I was so tired of exams, actually. At the time I graduated, I was so exhausted from exams and the way that exams are carried out in Hungary. It's quite intense. You have to imagine it's kind of like part communist, part like, their exam situation is really intense and almost it's not very practical, although they do try. It's very theory based. I failed one subject in second year, but they allowed me to take it again. Took one semester off and just studied it was biochemistry. I just studied like crazy for biochemistry, and then I took it again and I did well.
Okay.
But it's really hard. Like the exam system there is crazy. So when I was done with sixth year, I didn't want to take any exams. Like I went to a country where there was no exams. Like the States was out because I know I had to take So I did not want to take any exams.
Yeah.
Even when I decided England, I was like, okay, PLAB, if I have no other choices. But already I had looked into countries like Sweden, Norway, where the only exam they ask you to take is the language exam.
And you are okay with that? Just a language?
I was okay with language.
So what about French? Then, like, still I wonder, why did you not consider Switzerland? Because your parents are there, your siblings are there.
For me at that time, actually, I don't know. I wanted to just be an independent self. I wanted an independent self. I did consider Switzerland. I actually sent a few applications, but then they said that my French had to be at a really high level. I could speak French, but my French was not really good.
Could you speak, is it Norwegian?
I couldn't, not even a single word.
So you were saying, you know what, I'd rather learn a whole new language than to polish up on what I already know. That's
no, but remember, the job security here was top notch. Like, because we had people who had relocated from Hungary in the university that I was going to, Debrecen. Some of them had actually gotten jobs without speaking Norwegian. Some of them. But when I moved, it was made a requirement that we had to speak Norwegian. So that meant that I had to go to language school for 1 year and take the exams because they had specific exam results that you had to get. You had to get an A or a B.
Okay. Would you be considered an international medical graduate in Norway, or not really because you are EU? You're from EU country.
I would be considered EU.
Okay. So it's a bit different then for someone else. Okay.
Yeah. Different coming from Uganda. We can talk about that a little bit later. But anyways, so I had to do Norwegian for a year and then take the exams and then start the internship. But luckily, you just listen. So luckily, right at the time when I was doing my language, the Norwegian health system basically said that students who have studied in other EU countries or EEOS, these countries, did not have to do the internship because technically our last year of medical school in Hungary is like rotating through different departments where it's considered an internship. They passed a law that if you could prove that you can speak English with good grades in Norwegian, if you could prove that you can speak Norwegian with Norwegian, then you can go straight to specializing.
So for you, you just went straight for specializing.
So I did work because I wanted to get straight into a specialization program. And while I was waiting to get into a specialization program, I worked as a GP, I worked at surgical clinic. So I did like small jobs here and there, but that was just me waiting to get into my specialization program.
So then how did you choose? Because at this moment, I guess you could do anything. Why did you choose psychiatry? And did you immediately do child psychiatry, or do you first, like, how does it work?
Reason why I chose psychiatry, I think I've always been a good listener. I also remember in med school, psychiatry was one of the subjects that I did without having to stay up all night studying. Like it came natural. Like I remember when I went to the exam, I was very confident. I was very sure that whatever question came to me, I could answer it with a certain level of confidence and certainty that I was going to get a really high grade. Psychiatry was never really an issue for me in school. Just thinking about my personality, I'm a good listener. I'd rather listen than talk most of the time. You won't find me like taking up so much space in the room, but I listen. I pretty much thought, okay, I could do this. But bear in mind, when I was applying for a specialization program, I also was looking into the job market. Where do they need people? I knew that I wasn't going to do surgery because everyone almost wants to do surgery in one of these very, highly rated specializations in the hospitals. So I didn't want surgery. I didn't want to do internal because the spots are very few. So I decided, okay, I'll go for psych because there was a lot of specialization program. Yeah. And it was actually just random to do child and adolescent psychiatry. And in Norway, you go
Yeah.
straight, you don't do
You
adult
don't
first.
first do adult first.
No, but what they do is during our specialization program, you do work on the adult. That's one of the rotations in that, because our program is 5.5 years to become a specialist.
So 5.5 years of just looking at mostly kids and their mental health.
Well, yeah. So the first 2 years, you're in what they call, it's outpatients, basically. The patients come one hour and they go. And then the third year, you do in like either an acute institution where they're admitted, or like a more long-term institution where the patient is admitted for like 6 weeks, treating stuff like schizophrenia. So a little bit of a longer treatment period. That's third year. Fourth year is adult psychiatry. And then fifth year, you can choose whether you want to do research or whether you want to write a paper, or, fifth year is pretty much anything you want to do. You can choose whatever specialization that is related to child and adolescent psychiatry. What they aim for is, maybe some people can do habilitating. I don't know what that's called in English, but it's like, when someone has been out of the workforce for a long time, bringing them back into work. Or when a child has been out of school for a long time, or because of
rehabilitation, basically.
Basic habilitating. And then the last half year, we do it on pediatrics, on the pediatric ward. Basically, the whole 5 years specialization, child and adolescent psychiatry in Norway. Every single year during your specialization, your supervisor is checking to see that you're getting the right number of patients, because they have a list of, like, you have to get 100 depressed kids, you have to get 30 anxiety kids, you have to get 3 schizophrenic kids that you treat over a long period of time. So your supervisor is always checking that you're getting. So every single time we get referrals in the hospitals, she checks your list and say, you need this one. Can you put up your hand when they present the patient? So that's how it works. And at the end of the 5.5 years, if you have all your patients and you can prove that you've been doing all these consultations, they give you the specialization.
Are there exams involved?
No.
No.
None at all.
And
None at all, and never, even after you become a specialist.
Yeah, that is it.
It's your responsibility to always, find areas where you're lacking, areas where you need to improve, or areas where you think might be beneficial to you and your career, or even you and your job. Like, because you and your job are all constantly discussing, like, what do we need? Maybe we need the CBT therapist. Can you do that for 2 years? If you're interested, you can take it. If you want to treat eating disorders, you take the course. Like, no one is forcing you, or no one. Yeah.
That sounds good. Okay, in the UK, it's 6 years. We do 3 years of everything, rotating all over the place. And then 3 years will be in the child and adolescent only. I was wondering about, how psychiatry is really talking. It's mostly talking. So what's it like? Because I know in your medical school, it's in English. You are learning in English. So you only did this learning Norwegian for just 1 year. What's your experience been like talking about these things in like another language?
Initially, of course, it's nerve-wracking, because even in English, sometimes it's hard to express yourself. You know what I mean? A language that you've been speaking for a very long. So obviously, beginning, it's hard. But remember, in the beginning, you're kind of shadowing somebody. So your supervisor mostly fronts all of your patients for the first 2 years. That's why for the first 2 years, we do outpatients. So basically going with your supervisor to most of the consultations. If you really feel confident, then you can do the patients alone, but mostly your supervisor is like your backing.
You have one supervisor for the whole period, all the years?
No, you have one supervisor for each of the sections.
And are there any lectures, or it's just basically on job training only?
And we do have weekly it's like what do they call them, like lectures, pretty much. So
academic program. It's called academic program.
Everyone is attached to an academic program where you learn different things. And then we also have seminars, a lot of seminars, and just generally there's a lot going on during the year that, as a specializing candidate, you have to attend. It's obligatory.
I have always thought about it, like whenever I consider doing CAMS. So CAMS is child and adolescent mental health over here. That's why they call it CAMS. And my worry about it is the impact it would have on my motherhood. I feel like I would be on much more pressure to be a better mom, because like if you're a child psychiatrist, like you should know about kids, because I know you have a 14-month-old baby. What are your feelings about your career and your motherhood? Like, what's it like being a child psychiatrist and having a child?
I'm actually glad that I finished my specialization first before becoming a mother, because there's a lot of things I learned on the job. And I want to say learned because I was brought up in a completely different way from what I'm trying to do with my son. It's hard though, especially not having experienced it growing up. But I'm glad that I finished my specialization before I became a mother, because I'm sure we learn a lot of, a lot about attachment theory, about regulating emotions, about how your child actually mirrors your emotions even without you knowing it. All of these things, I'm so glad that I actually picked this specialization, to be honest. I would give an example. If I had chosen surgery, for example, I know for sure that I wouldn't be as regulated as
Yeah.
I am now, knowing what I know after being a child endorsing psychiatrist.
Especially surgeons, they're so angry.
I'm just very aggravated, I use aggravated because growing up, I was that kid. I was that, and even part of my adult life, I was kind of I had inner anger. Like, so I know if I hadn't done the specialization, and even now, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I'm a perfect mother, because sometimes it comes out, and then I have to remind myself, like, remember, there's nothing that this child can do right now. They don't understand anything. You have to be the bigger person.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad about that. Many people probably who don't even know what attachment theory is would think, oh, you don't need it. But honestly, and especially now in the world we're living in, how kids are just growing up to be all types of wild, like, you need to be regulated.
Yeah. You need to regulate yourself before you
Like,
consider regulating your kids.
conscious parenting should be taught more. In fact, in all the specialties, to be honest, everywhere. Anyone planning to be a mother should have conscious parenting courses. Honestly,
I agree. Especially African parents. African parents, you've had it here first. Please, it's not our fault, because obviously a lot of things were passed on from generations. Those generational trauma.
It's really not our fault. Like,
if you watch this video, then you know that there's another way. So keep listening.
Because honestly, even me now looking at how my mother like interact, it's not even her fault. You know what I mean?
It's not.
But
I have
as
an example. I have an example on your behalf. Exactly what you're talking about. My mom has just been here recently helping me take care of the kids, like when I had given birth. And some things she would say to like my 2-year-old, my 5-year-old. I'd be like, Mommy, why are you saying that? And then she says, what do you mean? Like, that's how we talk. Then I say, that's rude. Oh, that's going to make her feel a certain way about food or this and the other. And then she said, that means that we raised you wrong. Or, of course, obviously, she might be was feeling a bit defensive. But the point is that I totally get what you're saying, because it's really tough. And it's like a normal part of life, some of these things. And then when you hear what the person is saying, it sounds so rude, also inappropriate.
No, honestly, sometimes I have to take a step back. My mother was also actually helping me when my son was born. She was here for a good length of time, But at some point I had to reevaluate and say, you know what? Like, I need to continue by myself. Yeah, and it wasn't in a rude, or, and I think she understood. It wasn't in a rude or like, very dismissive type of way. It was just kind of like, because sometimes it's even hard to get through to your parents, because then they think, oh, you think you know it better than me, or I raised 4 kids, and you can't, there's no way on your first you can know it better than me. And
yes,
so that already for me is challenging, because I'm trying to do things different. And regardless of what happened to me or what was done to me, it wasn't like I was traumatized or anything, but I want to do things different, and I want to be conscious about it. So anyone trying to get in my way, whether you're my parent or you're my employer, I'm really going to put my foot down.
Yeah, so, and we're not like wanting to bash our moms or our parents, but we recognize that, yeah, like they did what they knew best at that time. But times are changing. Even our own kids, I'm sure, when they grow up, they'll be like, oh, there were certain things which, mommy, they were not quite right. But right now, in the moment, as we're doing it, we feel like we're doing the best that we can.
And I'm sure also our kids will look back and be like, oh, wow, what was that? Because there'll be something when that come, on the scene that is so much better for kids,
I think you told us about how you chose psychiatrist. So what is life generally like in Norway? What are the good things about, like, how long have you been there, first of all? And why are you still there? Like, what's so good about Norway?
Well, I moved to Norway 2009, October. So I've been when you calculate how many years is that? Maybe 13 years, I would say.
Mm.
Around about that time, 13, 14 years. Honestly, it's as I say, the job market is good.
But also, I feel like you can get a job anywhere in the world if you wanted.
Very true. Okay, I'll add on the job market thing. In my I'll speak for my specialization. In Norway, working as a child and adolescent psychiatrist, in the job that I'm working in, you're not working your life away. So you work for and you get paid well. That open in the States, for example. Even though you can get a job in the States, get a job in the UK, but I mean good job market, period. If you speak the language and you get paid well, that Norway has one of the strongest economies in the world.
Yes.
Economic stability, you get a good income. And we say it has to counter this with high cost of living. That's a con, obviously, but in the bigger scheme of things, would you want to live on the bottom 5 countries or on the top 5 countries to live in? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're living in Uganda, you might as well live in a country that is top 5 or thereabout.
Yeah. No, I think, yeah, you're so right. I've heard Norway is really good. I know someone else who's moved to Norway from England, and they say it's so expensive there, like the cost of living is so high.
It is. But other pros, I would say political stability, obviously. It's a safe place, good healthcare, things like that.
Okay.
Are what led me to being here. The cons, I would say, of course, high cost of living, extreme weather conditions. Oh my God, the winters are really rough, especially where I live. I live in the northern part, and it gets really cold. Like I'm talking -30, -40. So
Do you ever get used to it? Does it get any easier?
it gets easier if you have a plan.
How?
What I do, I plan to at least travel away in December or part of January, because those are the December, January, February are the worst months in the winter.
At a doctor meetup in London the other time, there was a consultant. Actually, she's a consultant pediatrician, and she's planning to move back to Uganda. And one of the things she was saying, because someone else was like, someone who's been here for like 5 months was saying, why would you go back to Uganda? And she said one of the things is the weather. She was saying, because she's been a consultant for, I think, 20 years. So she was saying that it doesn't get any easier the older you get. And yet that's England, like cold and all that.
I know. No, but the only thing about the weather I would say is, first of all, I'm not a really outdoorsy person. So I do go skiing. I do all these activities outside, but it's not my first choice. So I'm not outside looking to freeze. In the winter, I'm indoors. I'm Netflixing
and chilling.
I do work out, but I do it indoors. So for me, I'm thinking, okay, if you have a good life, you go to work, get in your car, walk a few steps into the house, get out, but it's manageable. Like I wouldn't pack my bags and move back to Uganda because it's so cold. It would take much more than that for me to make that decision with that reasoning. You know what I mean?
No, it was just one of her reasons, not the main one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So extreme weather conditions, it's hard. I'm not saying that, I take it with a smile on my face. It is hard, but it's survivable. Of course, you kind of forget about everything when the summer comes, although our summers are not even that summery. You know what I mean? Like it could be 20 degrees and everyone's have their top off and everything. And that's like extreme summer for us.
Wow. No, here is different. It does get quite hot in the summer. Although
we have a couple of days, but I wouldn't say that we can have a whole month full of just good weather. It's never not when I've been living up here in the north, maybe in the south of Norway.
Okay. What about I wonder about like racism, because I know Norway is one of those countries where there's not a lot of Black people. Like compared to England, for example, what's your experience been? Like, do you feel like you really stand out? Like, because for us, when we hear Norway, it kind of sounds like Norway, Germany, those countries where you don't even know anyone. Eh? Have you ever met any other Ugandan? Are there other Ugandans or Africans, or what's the community like there?
Well, surprisingly, actually, the place where I live, you would say in the north, you would say that there's very few Africans or, people of color, but I have bumped into a lot of Ugandans.
Have you?
Yeah, even in the north, you would be surprised. So my first experience actually bumping into a Ugandan was when I worked and lived in this much more urban city where I am now, Alta. Two Ugandans, or even people that have lived in Uganda, speak Luganda, but are not Ugandan, like Rwandese or Congolese. And even in the much more rural area where I work, because my workplace is actually 3 hours from the town. Even there, the Uganda. Do you know what I mean? So, but then again, I am that African person who's always looking for Africans. So I will bump into you in the shop, where you're from, and how long. I will be that person. So racism, honestly, I can't say that. I'm neither here nor there about it, but I haven't experienced extreme cases of racism here while I've lived here. Of course, there are people probably who think differently about us as people of color, but I've never been confronted with any racial slurs or being disrespected because of my color. So I guess they're very corporate about it, because I've actually they've never thrown it in my face.
Yes.
I just had I remember clearly one experience I had when I was doing my training. It was actually a Norwegian mother who had adopted a Congolese child, so a little Congolese boy. And I guess this child had been traumatized a lot growing up. So when they showed up to my office and it was me who was going to attend to them, the mother was very specific and said that she did not want me to be the doctor of the child, because the child will be reminded of his traumas, from, I guess, his biological family. And I didn't know how to react. I didn't know what to say, but she said it directly to me. And she also told the secretary. I had to approach my supervisor and ask her, what do I do? So my supervisor closed the door behind. She didn't want them to listen, but she told me, you're exactly the right person for this case, because this child needs to know that these people of color who are nice, who are good to him, who are going to actually show him that he needs to be taken care of, that he needs to be loved, he needs to be given good health care, and with the same people of color that did something to him, that, there's not only one side to the story. She told me that go back to the mother and tell her this, and tell the mother that, the adoptive mother, that in order for him to change his narrative, he's going to have to experience a nice, warm person of color, or a Black person, a woman that is going to be nice to him. So I told this to the mother, but she still was not really, it didn't sit well with her. I could see that she was not really going to take for an answer. So I, you know what, maybe we should make another appointment and you come back, but think about what I've said, So they left, and then they came back the next time, and she was actually more positive towards me being their doctor. So that was the only thing I remember that was, kind of like directly in my face. But otherwise,
And
I really,
she's got a valid reason as well, like valid to her. It wasn't like she was intentionally meaning, Yes, so we've had the pros, we've had the cons. So if someone is out there and they want to come to work in Norway as a doctor, do you happen to know the way they could do it? Because I know for you it was a bit different. You didn't even have to do any things back in the day. You are from EU, not like Uganda, or because you went to a EU medical school. Do you know what the process would be like for someone else?
no, I'm not going to lie. I but right now that I know it's difficult, but I don't know exactly what is difficult about the process right now in this economy, or whatever they're saying. I know for sure there's people, I know Nigerians who've tried, and they permeated the medical field after like between 7 to 9 years. But within those 7 to 9 years, of course, you do other random jobs that are not really medicine, or even related to medicine, but kind of like a lower status. So it is hard. The first thing one has to do is learn the language. I know for sure that's a requirement. Like, you could get anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're a consultant already or if you're finished specializing, you have to learn the language. That's the only way to actually fully permeate the job market, or even the social circles. You have to learn the language, and you have to get those grades that they need you to be in the working environment.
Do they speak only Norwegian? Do they not speak some English? Or
I'll tell you honestly, Norwegians speak English. If you decided to finish your language course and be stubborn and decide, I'm going to work in English, there would be no issues. As long as you prove that you can speak Norwegian as well. Honestly, they do speak English. they teach it at school. So they do speak it. It's pretty much like if you decided to switch it up and started speaking English in a meeting, it would be, of course, they would look at you funny because everyone's speaking Norwegian, but they do understand what's going on and they all speak.
That's really encouraging, because then at least you know that you won't entirely fail to, you can't get lost from failing to get anyone to understand you in the street, or fail to know what to buy in the market, or like.
No, they do. They'll understand you.
So I think that we don't know the exact steps of working as a doctor from abroad, but we do know you need to learn the language. So please, can you learn the language? And in the meantime, be searching and you'll find the answer. And if you happen to know the way, please comment below and let us know. Also, if you're Ugandan in Norway and you happen to be watching this, comment below and let us know. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't know if you have any other comments for the viewers or anything else.
Know in the medical field, please keep get in touch with me. I would really like to get to know more Ugandans in the medical field, because as far as I'm concerned, I haven't met any Ugandan doctors working in the Norwegian system. But there are Ugandans doing other things, but not medical.
So if you're Ugandan, please can you comment below and we'll get you in touch with Joanita. Thank you so much for coming. I think I will end it here. If you watched up to this point, and you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to watch more videos, don't forget to subscribe. Bye.
Bye.